full camera, split screen, that looks good. Bad news not found, so we got the default voice. I might keep this plugged in. I altered the setup slightly so that it's now plugged into an iMac. Seems like a lot of effort for the hand. It has to have like a whole iMac dedicated to it. But I'll leave it this way and see if other instructors just don't do anything. So like Karam will be up here tomorrow and it will just start waving every time Calgary comes. I think it'll be funny. What the hell is going on here? What? Oh. Oh, that's awful. Okay. Excuse me. Sorry. Like I say, busy day. I got to get prepared a little bit. Calgary, I guess. Are you there? Can you hear me? Did I do everything right?
Yeah.
Keeps hitting my laptop. Okay.
Yes.
So, whatever. What's this breakout about? Someone tell me. Who's prepared for the breakout? jQuery. Wow, I've got a lot of things that I planned on covering. Cool. All right. Let's answer the questions in Chrome. Not Chrome, Compass. In Chrome. Why does jQuery exist? What's that? It was created, yeah, to do you say cover browser inconsistencies? Fix browser inconsistencies, to make it easier so we could write JavaScript. Instead of writing different JavaScript for each browser, we could write JavaScript just once using jQuery, and it would work on every browser. jQuery would take care of all the different if-else statements that you would need to make it compatible with all the other browsers. Why do we use jQuery today when we don't really have that problem anymore, right? People actually adhere to the standards. Crickets. Why do we use jQuery? It's easier. What's easier? The syntax isn't as long. Yeah. Like, why do we use jQuery? So we can write less, do more. Yeah, right? Write less, do more. So that we can write less code. The reason you would use jQuery in 2019 is because something that would take me this much of vanilla JavaScript, like JavaScript without libraries, will take me this much jQuery. That's really it. Plus, there's a ton of plugins that can make like this much JavaScript, this much jQuery with a plugin, which is really nice. But yeah, it's all about reducing the amount of code we have to write, making it a little bit easier. Write less, do more. How much additional behavior does it add to the browser? So what can I do with jQuery that I just wouldn't be able to do without jQuery? So instead of events, is there actually anything that jQuery can do that I can't do without jQuery? No. It adds 0 new behavior. It just makes it so you can write less code, really. Events exist without jQuery. Events exist with jQuery. Everything exists with both. Is it a library or a framework? That's an awful question. It doesn't matter. Does anyone want to have any input on that? Someone ever asks you if something's a library or framework, just say it doesn't matter. What's the difference between a library and a framework? Everyone together now? It doesn't matter. Yeah, exactly. It is a library, but all frameworks are libraries, so like I couldn't be wrong if I said that. What is $sign or jQuery? We'll get to that. jQuery versus jQuery UI. Why is it important to learn? OK, yeah, we're just going to look at examples of all of this stuff. This one, why is it important to learn jQuery? Actually, let's maybe answer this. Why is it important to learn jQuery, even though there are definitely newer libraries and definitely more trendy libraries, right? Like everyone's heard React because it's trendy, whereas jQuery isn't as trendy as it used to be. So why are we learning a less trendy library? Yeah, it's like, how used do you think jQuery is? I wonder what I would Google to find this out. How many sites use jQuery? Versions of jQuery. I don't know how to read these statistics. jQuery usage statistics? Maybe. I just want a really like quick, clear number. I don't know how to read that. That isn't... I also don't want to make up the numbers. Does anyone know what I would Google to get the quick number that I want?
60% of the top 10,000 websites.
Okay, so apparently, oh look, there's a nice number. 70%, 77% of sites use at least one. Damn it, that's not what I wanted. Screw it. Anyway, one vulnerable. That's a topic for another day. Okay, so like 60% of popular websites are using jQuery either directly or indirectly. What do I mean by a site might be using jQuery indirectly? Kind of, not exactly. Wouldn't be like calling data or processing data somewhere else using jQuery. It's more like you would include a library. Do you want to use like maybe Bootstrap or some other type of JavaScript library that relies on jQuery? So you want to use something unrelated to jQuery, but that thing depends on jQuery, so now you're stuck with jQuery, which isn't a bad thing. jQuery is really well established, really easy to use. Tons of websites use it, but it often gets a bad reputation because it is older. It's not super lightweight, comes with a little bit of a footprint, and there are these newer, trendier frameworks. So let's just get to it though. Let's include jQuery in our application. Let's modify our website from this morning. But instead of doing vanilla JavaScript stuff, we're going to do jQuery stuff. So I'm just going to create a new scripts file. I'm going to call it, I don't know, breakout.js. And same HTML file, but instead of including scripts, I'm going to include breakout. There we go. Cool. So now we have no functionality. We're going to have to add in our own functionality, like the adding of new list items. We can add way more cool stuff. We can delete them. We'll add some animations through a jQuery plugin. So how do I get jQuery into my website, right? How do I include jQuery? Connect the library. What do you say after that? Oh, I could use a CDN. What's a CDN? Content Distribution Network. Let's go to jQuery.com. Let's go to download. And we have a bunch of different options. Oh, we can even use NPM. That's nice. Something to take note of. Oh god, there's so many things. Oh, here we go. Using jQuery with a CDN. So why might I want to use a CDN? When someone did the reading. I'm going to click on Google CDN. So by using a CDN, instead of downloading this library and including it in my project, which I could do, I could just download the jQuery library, include it in a script tag, and it would just exist within my project, and I'd upload it to the server. Instead of doing that, I can just link to a version of jQuery already on the internet. So I don't have to download it. I can just include this link. Why would I want to do it this way? Why might I want to use a CDN? Yeah, I have to do like less stuff. I have to copy less code. Don't have to include another file. Is it actually faster? Wait, which one faster? Me including it or the CDN? It could potentially be faster, yeah, using... It takes up less memory on your own server, so if you were actually concerned about some kilobytes of memory, yeah, absolutely. But yeah, it could be faster for the user using a CDN. So if, I don't know, let's say someone goes to Compass, lighthouselabs.compass.com or whatever, or is it compass.lighthouselabs.com, and that website happens to be using this version of jQuery using this CDN, your browser may actually cache this JavaScript file so that the next time you go to Compass, it's already there. It doesn't have to download the JavaScript file anymore. If my completely separate website uses the same CDN, and this file is already cached on your laptop from going to another site, this doesn't have to be re-downloaded. It already exists in your cache, and that's a pretty common thing to happen. So if everyone in the world used the same jQuery CDN, it would just get cached and and everything would be easy. What is the downside of using a CDN? What happens if I don't have an internet connection? Like I'm coding on an airplane and thinking, yeah, I'm going to get so much work done, so much jQuery done on an airplane. Don't have an internet connection, you don't get any jQuery. Yeah, that's annoying. So in development, it's probably better to not use a CDN. In production, you kind of have to make up your mind of like what's the best approach there. But for today, yeah, I'm going to use a CDN. Definitely, like if I know I've got a good internet connection, I'm at Lighthouse Labs, go nuts, use a CDN. Why not? So I now have jQuery within my website. What does that mean? Let me refresh or bring this open. There we go. Nice looking Bill Murray from this morning. What does that mean? Like, what does that mean I can now do with my site? Does it change any of the behavior? Does it change anything? Well, if I open up my DevTools and open up my console, I now have access to a few new global variables. What global variables do I now have access to? Well, everyone knows the answer to this. What global variables do I now have access to? The what? Well, yeah, the same ones as before, absolutely. I still have window and all that fun stuff. What's that like thing that you keep seeing today, right? $? I now have access to $. I didn't have that before. I also have access to jQuery. I definitely didn't have that before. What's the difference between $and jQuery? Oh, I spelled jQuery wrong. Little j. Love that it evaluates for me. Yeah, $and jQuery are the exact same thing. So why do I have both $and jQuery if they're the exact same thing? Because, I don't know, it feels cool to write $, instead of typing the word jQuery, I guess. John Resig was like, yeah, dollars everywhere, let's just use $. Why not? It's kind of like that weird, no, I'm not even going to try and bring it up, that weird face thing that I showed one lecture. Anyway, yeah, we now have access to $, we have access to jQuery. What is jQuery? What is this variable that I now have access to? What is it? Is it a number? Is it a string? Is it an object? Is it an array? What is it? It's a function. I will get you all making lots of noise at some point. It is a function, which means that I can call it like this. Is that right? It's a function. What should I pass to the jQuery function? Yeah, parameters. What parameters does this thing accept? So an ID or a class, absolutely. Let's see, breakout. Here we go. Oh, I already have it written everywhere. 4 things you can pass to a jQuery function. Let's pretend we didn't see that. One thing is an ID or a class. What is that? It's a CSS selector. Right, any CSS selector like we could for query selector. What else can I pass to the jQuery function? Another function. What else? What kind of objects? An array of what? So it doesn't just accept any old object, but yeah, we can pass an object to the jQuery function. We can pass a native DOM node. So I could use document.querySelector to get like a p tag or a p, yeah, whatever, node, and pass that to the jQuery function, and it will create a jQuery object from it. And there's one more thing. I mean, all of these can be variables. What values, though? What if I wanted to create a new element? Pass in a tag name. So this is like query selector. This is like create element. This is a special thing. And this is also a special thing. So let's kind of see what happens when we pass all of these different things to the jQuery function. When I pass a function to the jQuery function, what happens? So let's go here. So this is the jQuery function, right? What happens when I pass a function to the jQuery function? When will it run that function? On which event? The one that's specified. So who today has done like something like this? Probably document dot on ready or some form of this. Has anyone not written something like this today? Oh, really? Cool. Okay, I'm ahead of the assignments. What do you think this does? Document.onReady. Yeah. Yeah, when the document has finished loading, when everything in the HTML document has finished loading to the page, finished rendering, and I can access literally anything within the HTML page, this function will get called. This is a callback function that listens for this ready event. So the entire DOM is set up and good to go. This is just a longer way of writing this. And if I used a fat arrow function, it could be even shorter. But now anything that I write in here will only get executed when the entire DOM is loaded and ready. It's almost equivalent to listening for the DOM content loaded event. So this is pretty cool. So how often should I use this? If I have a function that waits until my entire HTML page is loaded before executing any code, when should I use that? Once? Yeah, actually. The best thing to do is to put all of your code inside this function. So define this once on the top line of your file. You should see this or something like this. And the bottom file should be like this. And everything, all the code you write should go in that function. Why is that beneficial? Yeah, so nothing gets executed before the DOM loads, right? Like images and stuff. You want to make sure everything is present before you try manipulating the DOM or accessing elements. What's another benefit? What is the scope of a variable? So if I create a function, or if I put all my code inside of a function like this, then everything gets scoped to the function, so no more global scope. Okay, I create a variable called hi, set it equal to hello. This now only exists within this JavaScript file, not within the global scope. So there's two reasons to write all of your code inside this function. One is it's safer because you know that the DOM is loaded before you start trying to mess with it, and you get scoped variables. Yeah?
Regarding the arrow function, is it okay to use them in this one? It's not the query stuff thing?
Oh, right, yeah. So the question kind of is it okay to use fat arrows here instead of a normal function? Fat arrows don't bind this. So out here, this is the global window object. And out or inside here, whether I used, actually, I guess if I used a function, it would be different. But using a fat arrow, this will still be the window object. And I just don't really care. I'm not really going to use that information. I'm not going to use this at all within here. With some of the event listeners, like a form submission, as you'll probably see tomorrow, you might want to actually use this, take advantage of this, which means using normal functions then. It's kind of hard to answer those questions without getting too in-depth, but I don't want to take the entire breakout with that. But yeah, you can use a function, normal function or a fat arrow here, that's fine. As long as you don't, like, if you're not really using this, it doesn't matter as much. Okay. I'm going to move these comments into the notes. Cool. No, I don't want to. I'm actually going to copy all of that. as a code example. Okay, so any questions about passing a function to the jQuery function? The next thing that I can pass the jQuery function is a CSS selector. So what might, which CSS selector shall we use? What should we grab from our page? Maybe the heading? Yeah. Let's do the heading, and then maybe we'll do the list after. So similar to how I used query selector and query selector all, I can just pass in the CSS selector. What does this give me, though? What does this return? Document.querySelector returned me a DOM node. What does jQuery function CSS selector give me? Is it the exact same object? Is it the DOM node? Is this just a shorter way of writing document.querySelector, or does it actually give me something different? So every time I get or create an element using jQuery, I don't just get the pure DOM node, I get the jQuery version of that DOM node. It's kind of like the standard DOM node wrapped inside this jQuery awesome suite with a bunch of other functions that make it easier to use. Think of like document.querySelector is like getting Tony Stark, but using jQuery is like getting Iron Man. Still Tony Stark, but like way more powerful. I like that visualization. Anyway, so this is actually a jQuery object that has way more functions and other really cool things that we can use, as well as the standard built-in like vanilla DOM node stuff. So if we expand this stuff, we can see there are a lot of methods that jQuery gives to us that make everything just a little bit easier. It makes it just a little bit less code that we have to write. So yeah, it's worth reading through the jQuery documentation to see everything that we get. But it's important to note that this is a different object. It's not just that normal DOM node. So let's say I'm grabbing this in the code. I don't know, const page heading. If I was grabbing this as a DOM node, I might just call it page heading. But to show every developer that's reading my code that this is a jQuery object, it's common to actually put a $sign somewhere in the variable name. I usually put it at the front. It doesn't change the behavior in any way. It's just kind of like a note to the developer saying, hey, this is actually not a native DOM node, it's a jQuery element. OK? Any questions so far? Cool. So I'm not going to wow you with any of this, but I'm going to grab the page heading, store it in a variable. If I wanted to get the text, the inner text of this element, how would I do it if it was a native DOM node? Dot right, inner text. This isn't the native DOM node anymore. I can go within the jQuery object and find the native DOM node, but you don't want to do that. You want to use the jQuery methods and properties now. You want to do everything the jQuery way if you have a jQuery object. The jQuery way of doing this exact thing is to call the text method. And if I want to set the text, I would put in, I don't know, kittens or something within this method. So this is just the jQuery way of doing things. The end result will still end up being the same, right? It doesn't add any new functionality, but the way we do it is the jQuery way, which when we're writing lots of code will end up making our code much smaller and nicer. Question was, do I have to put a $sign in front of the variable? Absolutely not. You can name your variables however you want. It's just very common to put a $sign in front of the variable name to tell every other developer and remind yourself that this is a jQuery element, not like your normal standard vanilla JavaScript element. Does that make sense? Yeah. OK. I have too many coffee mugs up here. OK. One other thing that I will point out. Actually, I think it'll be more fun to point it out this way. Let's grab another thing from the page. Let's grab the potato list. Actually, I'm going to do this kind of not the preferred way, but I'm just going to grab all of the list items. Now, if I was not using jQuery, I would have to differentiate between query selector and query selector all to say if I wanted all the items or just one of the items, the first item. Using the jQuery function, I just pass in a CSS selector. How does it know whether I want multiple things or just the single thing? So this will give me all of the list items. But whether I'm getting all of the list items or just like the single header, it's always going to give me this jQuery collection. So I can choose to just like get the first one if I really wanted to. There are special methods, or I can treat it kind of like an array. Like I go li first, just give me the first object out of it, or I could specify a single one. But it's really cool that this is actually a collection and not just an individual element, because those methods still apply. So, everyone see that? So when I wanted to grab a single element, I used the CSS selector, and then I modified the text of that single element using this method. But every time I use jQuery and a CSS selector, I get back a collection, which will sometimes be more elements. If I use the exact same method, it just applies to every element. I don't need to now write a for loop to loop through everything and change the text, or whatever it is I want to do. Maybe I'm adding an event listener or whatever. So it's really cool that the methods will just apply to everything in that collection. We don't need to specify query selector, or it will just grab it as a collection and tell us like the number of items in that collection, whether it's 1 or 9 or however many. Any questions about that? This actually, if you try to visualize this without using jQuery, it starts to, the amount of code you'd have to write starts to add up. Can everyone see that okay? It's big enough? All right, this definitely would have been me writing a for loop at some point. Any questions about the CSS selectors? No? OK. Yeah. So I had a question. Can I write a function like inside the text function? Was that the question? Yeah. So I'm going to now do something that I should have done at the beginning. I'm going to open jQuery.com, and I am going to go to the documentation. There it is, API documentation. And here is all the information you need to know about any method that you can call on one of the jQuery objects. So if we wanted to know more about how .text works, we just do a quick find for .text. There it is. I can now click on this and see all the information about how this works. jQuery is really well documented. It tells you exactly how everything works. And not only that, if you scroll down to the bottom, you always get an example of how it's used. This will be really handy, especially tomorrow when you're dealing with AJAX requests using jQuery. The examples are really handy. As for what text accepts, this is using text to get stuff, so it says it's not accepting any arguments. Just as I'm saying how good the documentation is, it turns out to not be as great as I wanted it to be. Oh, wait, here we go. So yeah, you could pass text a function, and the function will return the text content set. So instead of just setting the text directly, I could have a function that returns the text within it if I wanted to. That's fine. But definitely keep the jQuery documentation open while you're using jQuery. It's kind of funny that it's separated it that way. OK, any other questions? No, cool. Let's move on to the next thing. Let's see if I can copy and paste the commands that I wrote in the terminal there. Can I? Not easily. Yeah, I'll copy at least one. An HTML tag. So what's a good HTML tag? I don't know, maybe I want to create a new list item. If I want to do that without jQuery, I would go document, create element, and then specify li. If I want to do that with jQuery, jQuery function, and I can't just insert li because that's a CSS selector. It's going to look for all the list items on the page. So instead of doing it that way, I specify it as a tag. And this will now create a new list item element. not only does it create the new node that we could add to the DOM, it creates it as a jQuery object. So I could create the list item. Let's see, item equals $li, but it's a jQuery object, so if I'm going to add text to this, I'm going to do it the jQuery way. Hot potato, not hot kittens. How do I then add an item to, like, I want to add it to this list here? Right, like the way we did it this morning, we had to grab the list and then append the child to that list. Using jQuery, we can actually go from the element, so item in this case, and I can tell it to append itself to some other element. So there's just these so many convenience methods to do exactly what we want. So I'm going to append it to, and here I can just specify another CSS selector. This is great. What do we call our list? Potato list, obviously. So I can create an item with jQuery, modify it using the jQuery methods, and then append it to the DOM using jQuery methods. That makes everything easier to write. There it is. It was appended to the list, or the opposite of that, prepend to. Now it's at the top of the list. Okay, I'm going to copy and paste this into the notes. Any questions about using an HTML tag to create an element using jQuery? None? One other way you can create an element in jQuery, and I'm showing you kind of as a warning, is by putting the entire element within the jQuery function. So instead of just specifying a single li here to create the element, I could specify everything. I could say create a new list item called hot potato, close it, and this creates everything. And this way, I actually don't have to create the element and then set the text. I just created everything in one go, right? Do you think this is preferable, or should I avoid doing it this way? Less code, right? So probably a good thing. What's a downside to doing it this way? Say prepend that to potato. Like way less code. No, it doesn't have to be, you don't have to hard code the HTML. This could be dynamically done in JavaScript, right? Just like use a string template or something. Let's just see if this works. So I'm going to prepend it to the potato list. So if I hit enter, we should see hot potato at the top. Why would I not want to do it this way? Why would I want to do this across multiple lines, or creating the element and then setting the text after as a separate thing? Anyone got any guesses? No, it's not less flexible even, because we can add and remove things using the jQuery methods. Let's see, what if I do something like this? We'll add in even more elements. Maybe strong. Maybe we'll actually put a span around all of that with a class called highlight. Anyone see why we might not want to do it this way? Am I not supposed to do what?
Like keep all that inline stuff separate, like in HTML file.
No, in HTML this would be fine, right? This is a word that I'm emphasizing. This is a potato. This is a word that I'm strongly emphasizing. I'm wrapping everything in a span so that I can highlight it in a certain way, and it's all part of a list item. That's fine. What's wrong with this code right now? I'm missing the T in the highlight. OK, good job. Is Calgary just kind of like, yeah, they're just not saying much. I'm pretty sure the I was questioning. I thought my app had broken again. All right, yeah, missing the T and highlight. What else is wrong with this code? It's what? It's a lot, yeah. Actually, yeah, no, that's one of the issues with it. This is invalid HTML. I forgot to close the span. Where do I close it? I don't know. I think, oh, wait, no, yeah, it's right here. There we go. Would that be possible if I was doing it the first way, where I create the element and then I add the text to it and I create another element and maybe append that element? Would I be able to miss a closing tag? No. If I create, let's just add that in. Hey, look, hot potato. If I create elements very simply like this way, or it could be anything, could be an M, could be a span, whatever, then there's less room for error. So create your elements simply and then modify them using the jQuery methods. Although this is completely legal, you will find times when you mess things up and it's difficult to find the error. Like you just miss a closing tag and that's all it takes. Both valid ways, and there are even more valid ways. I urge you to read the documentation and see valid ways of creating elements in jQuery. Are there any questions about creating elements? Yeah. Can you use backticks? Yes, absolutely. So I could do this whole long line thing. But are you talking about this? Oh, wait. Yeah, so I could do it this way, and then I could like, right, this is what you were talking about. Yeah, and then format it. Yeah, so you could do that, and then you could input stuff in here. Like maybe this is a variable name. Like that's totally fine. I haven't defined high, whatever. Yeah, you can use backtick, so you could make it look a little bit better and hope that you don't mess it up, but it's still not as safe as, yeah. I think you'll get into it tomorrow, but this text wouldn't be escaped. So someone could have some malicious content in a variable that could run a script tag within your site that does awful things beyond the scope of this breakout, but I'm pretty sure you'll look at it tomorrow. Whereas if you did .text, it would get escaped for you, which is quite nice. So jQuery will do less helpful things if you do it this way and more helpful things if you do it this way, to make sure you don't get like hacked and stuff. All right, let's see the final thing. Cool, it's 3:40. The final thing that we will pass to a jQuery function is a native DOM element. So let's just look at a kind of simple example of this. I'm going to refresh the page. I could say, I don't know, const heading equals document.query selector hashtag page title. What is the name of this one? Page heading. Hashtag page heading. Using the native DOM way of getting a native DOM element. I now have a heading, but I want it to be a jQuery object. I want to be able to call, I don't know, text. That's one thing. I can pass this to the jQuery function, and now it becomes a jQuery object. So now I can use it as the jQuery object, and I could set the text this way. Okay. This seems underwhelming, probably. Like, why would I get an element using document.query selector and then pass it to the jQuery function? Why wouldn't I just use the jQuery function? Is everyone wondering that, hopefully? Hopefully. This, I will show you why this becomes handy in a moment. The main reason being, sometimes we have a native DOM element through other means, like not through query selector, but we just get handed it at some point, and we want to be able to use it as a jQuery object. So we pass it to the jQuery function. Now it's a jQuery object. You know, this is Tony Stark. This is Iron Man. So, any questions about any of that? I mean, this is in the notes. My Tony Stark thing definitely isn't. I don't know. It's all, what's the best way of putting this? It's definitely all on the internet, that's for sure. It's definitely like, I'm not saying anything. Yeah, it's all on the jQuery website. And if you want my opinions, you can always just flag me down. Calgary, how you doing? I haven't heard from you in a while. Can you give me a high five? Or I've lost them completely. No. How bad is that? Oh, wait. Oh, the computer went to sleep. Where's it take? It hit. I'm gonna have to fix that. Okay. So let's move on to. Yeah, I'll quickly talk about chaining, and then we're going to talk about event handling, delegation, and kind of see why some of these things might be useful. So chaining is a really cool thing that happens with jQuery. Actually, let's do events, and while we're working with events, we can look at chaining and event delegation, all this other stuff. So event handling in jQuery. We have this form. Let's see, where's the form? Bottom of the page. I want to attach an event to it. Which event do we want to attach to this form so we can see when someone adds a new potato in this case? On a submit event, right? So first thing I have to do is grab the form. I'm going to do this the jQuery way. What did I call my form? Potato form. Hashtag potato form. How do I add an event listener in jQuery? Anyone? Dot on. Function. Whoops. Event. What is the first thing I have to do? Or the first thing I want to do when I've attached a submit event to a form? You say login? Oh, console log it. All right. What's the second thing I want? Find a variable. No, what's like, what's going to happen if this form gets submit? What is the default behavior? There we go. What is the default behavior of a form when you submit it? It goes to a new page. How do I prevent the default behavior? Event, prevent default. Cool. Okay. So now we've got that out of the way. What do we want to do now? We could do, so yeah, what do we want to make it do? Maybe the same as before, right? Maybe we'll create a new list item. Maybe we'll find the list of potatoes, and maybe we'll add the new list item. Sound good? Okay, in jQuery, how do I create a new list item? Boom, $ brackets, and yeah. Put a tag into the jQuery function. Let's call this li, that's easy. How? I guess we would need one more step. Get the text from the form. How do I get the text from the form? Not the value of the form. We actually want the value of the input. So we want the value of our potato text. And just like earlier, we had to get the value from the text field instead of the inner text. With jQuery, we can't use like the text method. We have to use a special form input value method. So I can grab the item using jQuery and then use the jQuery value. Wait, is it value or is it val? Anyone done? It's val. Okay. So I could say const text equals the val from the potato text input. Then I create a new list item. How do I set this list item's text to be this text? .li.text or $li.text is text. How do I find the list of potatoes? I've forgotten what I called it to. Potato list. Hashtag potato list. And maybe I'll do this all on one line. How do I add the new list item to it? Append, yeah. So I'm pretty sure this will work. I don't think I've messed anything up there. Let's refresh the page. Let's add a new hot potato, hit enter. There we go, it's appended. Yep, hashtag ID dot class. Okay, so this is kind of cool. I've kind of written less code here. There's one more thing I want to do, and that's show you what chaining is. So with most methods on the jQuery object, like .text or like append or like the many other ones that I showed you, that method actually returns the object it was called on. So that means that I can chain more methods onto it. I could set the .text, but I could also, I don't know, what's another jQuery method anyone know about? There's .css. If I want to modify CSS values, I could say the color is fuchsia. How do you spell fuchsia? Why did I pick a difficult color to spell? That's blue. There we go. Any other methods people know about? That would be part of CSS. Come on, let's go back. Let's find another one that looks kind of cool. Oh no, there is a resize. Replace all, Q. What's that? Key down. Now that would be an event for key down. Yeah. I don't want an event. I just want to do more stuff to it. I can't think of anything. I guess we could add class. I just want to prove that we can keep adding methods to this. We're going to add the class, I don't know, new item. Sure, that works for this demonstration. So because each of these methods returns the thing that it was called on, I don't have to write multiple lines like this, $li, .css or li.addClass. I can just chain them all together. And I can go one step further, and I can just chain this to the original item. And because there are more methods for appending other than just append, I can tell this to append to its parent. So I can use chaining to really reduce the amount of code I have to write, the amount of times I have to rewrite like this variable name. The only thing is, once you do get into chaining, it can get kind of long on one line. So it is a common thing to do is to break it up onto multiple lines. So you're still writing less code, but it's a little bit easier to read this way. But that's an example of chaining. So we can get rid of all this stuff. And there. That creates my item, sets the text, sets some CSS, adds a class, and appends it to the item it needs to append to in the DOM. So let's go and see. Hopefully this still works. Hot potato. Yeah, but now it's blue. What else? Yellow potato? Yellow potato. Jazzy potato. Anyway, write less, do more. Cool, any questions? Okay. Two more things I want to talk about. There's event delegation and then jQuery plugins. We'll do event delegation first, and then we'll get to some animation plugins. Let's say now I want to attach an event listener to every single list item, and when someone clicks the list item, we'll delete it. We'll just remove it from the DOM. How would I add an event listener to every single list item? Yeah, so let's see. I just want to make sure. I'll do it up here to make sure I'm not interfering with the form. First, let's grab the list items. dot on, right? So because this is a jQuery collection, I can just apply those methods to it, whether it's a single item or multiple items, rather than having to loop through like I would without jQuery. So on, I don't know, what are we going to listen for? A click, I think? Is that?
Yeah, for like a mouse up, like.
Oh yeah, so we could do mouse up, but mouse up might happen if we click somewhere else and mouse up on the item. I want this click event, which is like basically down and up all on that same item. So a click event's good. Let's see, there's no really default behavior when you click on a list item, so I'm not going to use the event in this case. And what do I want to happen? Actually, I am going to use the event. It's a good example of my other thing. Because an event has a property called target. And let's console log this out. Can anyone guess what the event.target's going to be? So you refresh the page. If I click on a list item, cool. Right? Every time I click on an item, it's console logging the event.target. Event.target is the thing that the event happened on. So these are the individual list items that I clicked. Notice that these are native DOM elements. So JavaScript has handed me, although I'm using jQuery, it's handed me a native DOM element.
Does anything else get given to the callback function besides event?
That's a really good question. Does anything else get... I don't know, actually, the answer to that question. So I'm going to console log arguments and see. Nope. Only event. But event has a ton of properties. Another way of doing that would just be like, you know, type in thing 1 and thing 2 and then like console log these things out. Be like, I wonder if this function accepts any more parameters. Can be a fun thing to do, to just experiment with that stuff. And we see undefined, undefined. So no, only one parameter gets past this function. It is the event. But the event object is huge and has basically everything we need on it. So event.target is going to be useful because it is the list item, but I'm using jQuery. I want everything that I'm using to be jQuery. So how do I take a native DOM element and create a jQuery object from it? Pass it to the jQuery function, yeah. If I pass a native element to the jQuery function, I'm going to get a jQuery object. I got my Tony Stark. Now I've got my Iron Man. So let's just call this, I don't know, create a variable, call it item. It's a jQuery object, so I'll use a $. And now I'm going to console log this out, put my computer to sleep magically. Wait for it, there we go. So now it's going to console log out the jQuery object. If I click on that, item is not defined because I missed the $. Now if I do it correctly and click on the item, we can see that it is actually the jQuery object, not just the native DOM element, but a jQuery object. So this is great because now I can use all the methods and stuff that I want to use on it, which is awesome. What do I want to happen when I click on an item? Delete it. How do I delete an item in jQuery? Let's see. Delete is not what I want to do. Remove. Dot remove. There we go. How does dot remove work? It is similar to empty. Takes elements out of the DOM. Use dot remove when you want to remove the element itself. Perfect. That sounds like exactly what I want to do. So over here, this is the jQuery object. If I call item.remove, this should do everything we want it to do. So let's refresh the page, click on, which one do I want to get? Probably the poo emoji would make sense to get rid of. Let's get rid of the purple potato, stick them in a stew. All right. Cool. Any questions about that? What we've done so far? Attached an event listener to every single list item, got the jQuery object from the list item, and then told it to remove using jQuery. Let's add some more and then remove them. So I'm going to add, again, hot potato. Why not? Let's add purple potato back. Why not? What else? It's another kind of potato. What's it? Fingerling potatoes. Cool. Now I want to remove fingerling potatoes. What do I do? Click it. OK. Why is nothing happening? And I am clicking, I promise. If you can like see my finger, I'm clicking so hard that the dictionary showed up. I click vodka, it goes away, but I click fingerling and nothing happens. Why? What's that? Boom. Exactly. The adding came later on, after we'd already done the event listener. So at this moment in time, on line 7, this code gets called once the app is finished launching, right? Once the DOM has loaded. So as soon as the DOM loads, grab every list item and attach a click event to those list items. Then later on, create new list items that have nothing to do with this code and have no event attached to them. So of course, every new list item I create after this doesn't get the event listener because I didn't add the event listener to those new items. So how do I rectify this? How do I make sure that this this event listener is on every list item? Even if I put it to the bottom, this code won't happen until later. But what were you saying?
I said I was going to move it down to underneath the ad.
Oh yeah, so same thing. So no, I mean, not a bad guess, but this doesn't make a difference. Because this code will get executed way before this code does.
Should we refresh the list once it adds?
Kind of refresh the list once it adds? I mean, maybe, I don't know. We could like insert this, or wait, no, we could do something like this, right? Dot on and then add the event listener to the list item once it's created. Duplicate some code a little bit, which is fine, right? Duplicating code is fine. There is a really cool feature of jQuery, called event delegation. And the way you do it is instead of defining the event on the specific items where the number of list items in this case might change throughout the lifecycle of the app. So if I want the event on all of the list items, attaching it to the current set of list items doesn't make sense. I instead need to attach the event to something that won't change throughout the entire cycle, the container of the list items. So if I attach a click event to the unordered list itself, then I can just, every time I click on it, the unordered list can tell me which list item I actually clicked on, and no matter how many list items I add, they'll always be in that unordered list, so I'll always be clicking on that unordered list. But the number of items within the list can change. Or I could attach a click event listener to the entire body and have the body tell me if it was on a list item or not, and it won't matter how many I add or remove because the event itself will always be on the outer container. So what are our list items contained within? I mean, we could use body, but that seems like a bad idea. Let's get more specific. What are our list items in? They're in the unordered list, and specifically the potato list. So instead of attaching the event itself to the list items, I'm going to attach it to the parent. But great, but now I have a single click event on the list itself and not on the list items. But with jQuery, all we have to do is specify another parameter after the event, in this case click, and that is the items we actually want the event to happen on. So the click event is attached to the list, but jQuery is going to call this function as if it were attached to the list items. The key difference being the number of list items can grow and shrink as much as we want. The click event itself is always on the parent container. So by doing it this way, our function can stay exactly the same, because as far as our code is concerned, the event is still on the list item, but jQuery is doing magic behind the scenes to make sure that we don't have to write extra code and that everything just works. So this is a really nice feature. If I refresh now, let's add some new ones. Fingerling, yellow, hot, how, wow, I'm really bad at typing, and it doesn't clear. Whatever. So now, no matter where my list item is, because the click event is on the parent container itself, it should just be able to delete the current item. Okay? That is one of the nicest features of jQuery, I think. Event delegation. Attach the event to the parent container, but have jQuery treat it as if it was on one of the child elements. Okay, any question? Damn it, we're going over time. Yeah.
So if you add the delegation, you don't have to move your function under the list.
No. Exactly. So if we add event delegation, we don't need to move the function on the list. This did nothing anyway. I could put this up here. Whatever. Because this changes where the click event exists, but our behavior doesn't change now. But yeah, it's important where the click actually exists. Yeah?
If we had more than one unordered list that we wanted this on click to happen, could we put first tag beside available?
So if we wanted it to be on more than one ordered list, could we put this on, like, I mean, we could just do this. Or are we talking about, I mean, honestly, you could do this. This is just more memory intensive.
I'm saying, like, say we had 3 lists and we wanted the on click event to happen on 2 of them.
Oh, okay, so say you had 3 lists, you only wanted the on-click event to happen to 2 of them. I'd probably give 2 of them the same class and then be like click lists or something. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, all of this stuff, like what goes in here and here, these are all CSS selectors, so like however you would specifically select 2 or 3 or a single thing in CSS. Okay, any other questions? Anything from Calgary? Thing went to sleep again? Oh no, it didn't. Okay. One more thing, I know it's over time, but I'm going to do it anyway. jQuery plugins. So a jQuery plugin is a library that we can include in our application with jQuery, and it gives our jQuery objects more behavior. So currently, just by including jQuery, every object that we create from the jQuery function has all of these methods that do all of these great things. But sometimes we want even more methods for things like animations. So we can use jQuery plugins that will add even more methods than what already exists to our objects. One of the most popular ones and oldest ones is jQuery UI. jQuery UI, yep. So here is jQuery UI. I am actually just going to go straight to one of the examples here. But basically, jQuery UI gives you a bunch of methods to help you do UI stuff. I want to look at effects, I think. Yep, here we go. Here are some effects. We've got, okay, so this is a blind effect, bounce effect, drop effect, fold. It's kind of funny. Let's do shake. It's kind of funny. Let's do actually explode, right? So instead of just our thing disappearing, we're going to explode each list item when it's clicked, right? This would be code we'd have to write ourselves, but it exists in this library, and it just integrates with jQuery because it's a jQuery plugin. So I'm going to go straight down to the source. I am going to just copy and paste this code. Like here is all the source code. You should probably read through it and understand it a little bit. But basically, when you include a jQuery plugin, you can include the CDN or the file as long as you include it below jQuery because it relies on jQuery. And then you get to start using all of these features. So in this case, I now have access to methods called on click. Let's see, real quick, run effect. Here we go, effect. So I can call dot effect on any of these elements and pass in one of these effects. We're going to use explode. So instead of just saying remove, I'm going to say item.effect explode. Okay. So remove is a native jQuery method. Effect is a jQuery UI method. It's a method that comes from one of the plugins. So now the rest of my code doesn't really have to change. But if I click on one of these, we should get an explode effect, which doesn't look as cool as it did on the website, but still like explodes. I don't know, there's an animation there. You could tweak it a little bit. Explode a hot potato. Yeah, anyway. Do you have any questions about that? And there are a ton of jQuery plugins, and you can write your own jQuery plugins. Okay. Yeah, I went 7 minutes over there. I'm sorry about that. Calgary, how you doing? Any questions? If not, just write a message anyway, because we love to hear your voice. You in Vancouver? Any questions about anything? No? Good. Cool. All right, then I'll let you get on with your jQuery assignments.
https://www.similartech.com/technologies/jQuery.
Oh!
Stats we're looking for.
Did you know these the entire time?
Yes. But I left them to the end. It's like a nice callback.
Whatever. Here are the stats I was looking for earlier and couldn't find. Bad Nemo. Okay. Bye.